How did these people reach the top of the world? Why doesn't everybody get the chance to top the charts like these artists? Today, we're going to be investigating all parts in the process of how an artist rises from the underground, bursts into the music industry, and begins to skyrocket with global success. Recently, it seems like more and more people are blowing up out of nowhere. It might sound obvious, but I literally think it takes one song. Let's look at some examples more recently. 4bats, this mysterious individual in a shiesty, blew up earlier this year with this smooth R&B track called Act 2 Dated 8. There are a couple of reasons I think this song blew up in the first place. From the viral potential this song had since it dropped, it's all but confirmed that 4bats is an industry plant. It's safe to say this song was engineered to be a hit, and it didn't take much effort to do so. On the other hand, if we take a look at an artist like Charli XCX, she's been making music for over a decade now, and while she's had hits in the past, has never reached this level of notoriety and stardom that she has now. Before Brat, her blow-up project, I didn't even know that she was the one that made songs like Break the Rules or Fancy. It goes to show how unfair the industry can be, that one artist that's been trying to blow up for years could be overshadowed by someone who got their song hand-cooked in a lab for them. This example might not be the best because Charli is bigger than 4bats now, as he was a one-hit wonder, but the logic applies to virtually any other artist. Some might say it's luck, but I really don't think that's the case. If it were just luck, then random people all around the world would be blowing up with seemingly no reason. Instead, I think it has something to do with the grueling process that artists have to undergo in order to weave their way into the industry. I don't think there's one way that artists become global superstars. Rather, I think it's a combination of factors that come together to boost the chances of an artist becoming the next Weeknd, for example. This is going to sound super obvious, but starting out, an artist actually has to put music out in order to have any sort of chance of blowing up later in their career. Of course, a hit single is guaranteed to break an artist out of the mainstream, but there has to be other factors. Every artist starts out small. Typically, things like consistency, image, and catchability within songs are crucial aspects of an artist blowing up. To start, an artist has to pick a genre of music that speaks to them, learn how to play instruments, put songs together, immerse themselves within that genre, record as much music as they can, and produce music that they're passionate about. I think that the idea of a level of consistency is incredibly important, as it can determine if an artist's career can actually work in the first place. The tricky part is that this idea is really difficult to commit to, as many factors can affect it. For one, if music isn't an artist's main profession, then it can be difficult for them to commit to regularly making music over a certain period of time, as the process of creating music takes a while.
It involves conceptualization, songwriting, pre-production, team assembly, recording, mixing, mastering, design, distribution, and promotion.
Which obviously is an incredibly involved practice that requires not only time, but money, coordination, and planning. This leaves up-and-coming artists forced to choose between making music and living their lives. Not to mention that this level can take anywhere from a few months to multiple years to reach. Just because they made an album doesn't mean the album will succeed, which is the unfortunate part. If the album didn't do well, then they won't make any money off the music. If they don't make any money off the music, chances are that they will slowly start to give up on it, which further lowers the number of artists even trying to make music in the first place, not even trying to go viral. It all depends on if people actually listen to music and show support back to the artist, and if streaming services push the music out to further audiences. If they choose to continue with music, and after they've reached a level of consistency that they're comfortable with, then they can start making moves like going for viral songs as they've built up the skill set to do so. Even then, it's not guaranteed work and can take even more time to achieve substantial success. Considering artists earn 3 to 5 cents per stream, it can be unbelievably disappointing when you work on a hard piece of music, all for it only to reach a few hundred streams, earning you literally just a couple of cents. The reason that Travis Scott blew up wasn't because he had one good song that's catchy, but it was that he worked at his craft for 5 years before he had a smash hit that solidified him as a master at his work. One artist I love, DC The Don, has been making music for 6 years now, and though he's roughly at 500,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, has tons of songs with millions of streams, I still wouldn't consider him mainstream. I'd consider somebody mainstream to be someone who, if you're walking down the street and ask somebody, they would be somebody they know. I think his music personally outshines a lot of major artists right now, but since it's more on the niche side, it can be difficult to bring that sound out to a much larger audience. Looking at it a different way though, as artists can get more and more popular, they can begin to lose quality and adopt a quantity over quality mindset. Not being as popular as some of these massive artists can have its benefit, as the music they put out can have more personal emotions put into it, different production, and can have more time to perfect their music without having to be under the pressure of a major label. It's also important to talk about the genre an artist is trying to break out in. If an artist is trying to break out in a genre that's oversaturated or undersaturated, then it's going to be even more difficult for them, as there's either way too much of the music they're trying to make or not enough for them to really get anywhere because nobody's listening to it. The thing that's important to consider is if that undersaturated or new genre were to gain popularity in the future, then chances are that the artist would have already moved on to something else or quit altogether. For pop music, if someone were to make songs that sounded along the lines of people like Billie Eilish or Ariana Grande, then people would instantly call them out for sounding too similar to them and adding more to a genre that's, in my opinion, already stuffed with songs that sound similar. I'm not just saying that pop is the only genre that has songs that sound alike. A lot of other popular genres like rap, EDM, and country all have sounds that sound incredibly similar, as they use the same flow, beat type, and song layout. This means that an artist that wants to become more popular has to simultaneously find a way to bring something new to the genre without straying so far from it that people hate on it for sounding too outlandish. This makes it difficult because there's only so many ways that instruments, vocals, and production can be arranged to sound different, adding to the growing list of obstacles new artists are faced with. One artist who I think is doing really well with bringing something new to the rap genre right now is JPEG Mafia. His music is like nothing else in the genre because it's so experimental and unique.
Fuck y'all niggas, I feel like Papa John. Rapping straight to the fence. I'm Tony Khan. And they
This also relates back to my point that artists need to find a way to bring something new to the game without straying so far from it that people hate it. Just like DC, I wouldn't consider him mainstream, and that's part of the reason why he's such a special artist. He really has a lot of control over his own music and isn't trying to dominate the music scene. Competitors and artists' respective genres also prove to be a challenge, as they are literally trying to do the same things as you, which contributes to the problem of oversaturation as well as demotivation, leading back to the idea that artists are forced to choose between making music and living their lives, putting them in a difficult situation if they want to continue to pursue making music. That's why it's so important to develop your own sound in order to beat competitors at their own game and keep the process fresh for yourself. If you make music that's unique, then chances are you're going to enjoy it a lot more than trying to make your music sound like someone else's. Though it's important to differentiate yourself from others, artist influence is also crucial, as that can instantly break someone into the mainstream due to the success that they've already achieved. Let's look at Ken Carson, because I think he's a great example of an underground artist who over the past 4 years has exploded onto the mainstream music. Taking heavy inspiration from Playboi Carti, Ken Carson is an underground rapper turned superstar who blew up due to his distinct take on rap. Though it did take time for him to pick up traction, which is expected, like I explained above, as it can take artists years to get anywhere, his style pushed the normal boundaries for rap at the time. I think that the fact that he pushed the boundaries of rap from a more lyric meta to a more beat heavy one proves he had what it takes to break into the mainstream. He took it from rapping on personal issues and emotions on darker beats to speaking on some of the same things, except on more lighthearted, bouncy, and catchy sounds that changed enough in the genre for him to achieve success. I'm not saying Ken Carson is the greatest artist ever, but I think he provides a really good example of how you can change something in the genre without going so far from it that it sounds dystopian to make a name for yourself. However, I don't think that without Carti he would be as big as he is now. Speaking of Carti and his influence, that brings up another point: the control the dominating artists have in the world. Since massive artists like Drake, Taylor Swift, and even Travis Scott have such a massive fan base, it's no wonder that their labels, managers, and companies will do as much as they can to continue to promote them and drown out the rest of the voices trying to climb their way up to the top. These behind the scenes actions have done so much control in the end because everyone is just trying to make money and is trying to do that by keeping these people who are already making millions at the top, who continue to produce music that dominates the industry. Also, most of the time, these artists serve as inspiration for a lot of up-and-coming artists and lead them to create music that sounds like them, just because they believe that these artists are doing things the way they should be done. While a lot of popular artists are actually good people, this shouldn't be the case because while these chart-topping artists are achieving exponential success, they aren't doing it in the most ethical ways. For most of them, as they get more and more popular, it only fuels them to get richer, which can lead to things beyond the music space. And not getting into it too far, but taxes, emissions, and fund allocations are all big parts of how these artists can contribute to larger global problems. I don't think there's one single method or reason as to why an artist breaks into the mainstream. On top of being faced with a myriad of obstacles like the control other massive artists have over their respective industries, backlash, competitors, and finding a new sound, artists are somehow forced to turn this into a career that they can manage and work at for a long time if they plan on actually turning it into something lucrative. As for actually achieving that success, factors like sound, virality, and catchiness all contribute to why an artist can go from a couple thousand monthly listeners to a couple million. Breaking into the mainstream isn't easy at all, and I don't think that it can be done in months or even years. For most, it requires an immense amount of passion, consistency, hard work, and dedication to break into the mainstream in the modern music landscape. Nowadays, a new artist has to stand their ground and prove that they are worthwhile for modern listeners in order to stay relevant to continue to grow for years to come.